I found that I can serve and I can sacrifice for good reasons or bad reasons. And I think a lot of people dream the way that I dream, which is of doing something great for others. And it feels heroic when I'm picturing it all happening. You know, somehow I come in and save the day and people are cheering and I feel great and the end. But what I've realized over time is that self-sacrifice and service to others is only truly meaningful when I fully know the value of the self that I'm sacrificing. I realized at some point that I was in the same camp as a lot of other people, and that there are a lot of us out there who feel like we would gladly die for another person or serve other people, but that it was because we dislike ourselves. And I realized that it is not heroic to sacrifice what I consider a substandard self for a beautiful other. That was actually self-hatred, that it was dysfunctional, that it was ignorant, and that it was an attempt for me to create an anesthetizing purpose out of thin air. And that in the back of my head was this mantra that was saying, live for something, anything, just don't be here now. And I started realizing that the literal act of jumping in front of a bullet was the easy way out. It was a way to end the internal conflict and finally be at peace. I could be away from the accuser within myself and the accused within myself, that the judge and the condemned no longer had to coexist inside of a single body. I hoped for a heroic way out of this life, not even realizing that it was because I was uncomfortable with myself. I thought it was life that was so difficult, but it wasn't. It was my relationship to myself that was so difficult. While this idea of heroic self-sacrifice was this big picture idea, there were smaller acts of service that offered a temporary reprieve from the same thing. So I ended up making a lifestyle to keep the focus off of myself and feel like my life was justified. It was my way of feeling like I was atoning for my existence. These experiences that I've had have helped me to see the world of service in a new way. And I think that there's a pandemic of self-sacrifice and service taking place. Many of us are continually sacrificing ourselves, our time, our resources for people and things that don't need or deserve us. And it's not noble to waste our lives doing for others what they should be doing for themselves, just so we don't have to deal with ourselves. Something else that I found pretty interesting is I started realizing how tyranny and bad religion and all kinds of unhealthy social and political organizations thrive on this type of mentality. There's nothing more useful to a system or a movement than self-hating people ready to atone for the sin of their existence by serving others or a supposedly good cause. And this is just one more reason why I think life starts with identity. If we don't know who we are and our value, then we won't have a good gauge of which people and pursuits are worth our time. I'm sure you're familiar with this adage that actions speak louder than words. But in this case, there's something that speaks louder than actions, and that's demonstration. While acts of service might help others in the short term, it can do a lot of long-term damage. Why? Because what people really receive from us is the example we set, the life we demonstrate. These are the most potent gifts we give, especially to our children. And while we think actions speak loudly, people can feel our motivations more powerfully than we realize. They can feel the motivations behind our actions. And those motivations make a lasting impact that remains long after fed bellies become hungry again. So when we serve from a place of self-deprecation or self-hate, we transmit a message, and that message usually goes something like this: I have no intrinsic value. I don't like myself. I am simply a means to an end. Be like me. Hate yourself. Serve others in order to stave off the pain of existence. Over time, this falseness will beget falseness. This is the fruit of a poison tree. Even if in the short term, this type of service helps us care for the poor or clean up the environment, the self-hatred will not lead us where we want to go. Not individually, not as a society. There will be a price to pay for misplacing our identity, and that price will be great. There's no worthwhile reward in this life or the next for those who serve because they undervalue themselves. So this is why I've come to the conclusion that the greatest act of service is demonstrating the beauty of who we are. And this is why it can take a lot of time to grow into someone who can really make a difference in the world. So when I decide to take up a cause that is really going to take effort, I ask myself, am I coming from a healthy place, or am I trying to atone for my existence or avoid being with myself? Being alive is not something we should be apologizing for. It's not something we should be trying to atone for through acts of service. Our existence is something to be celebrated and shared with others. And that is a completely different way of approaching the idea of service. So serving for the wrong reasons might earn me a statue. It might get my face on a coin. I might get a lifetime of people validating me, telling me how amazing I am for my selflessness or acts of service, but it won't save me. Because when this is all over and it's all stripped away, all I will be left with is myself. And the issues I haven't dealt with will be dealt with. And even the good acts that I performed in order to avoid dealing with myself will burn away. They're not going to last. They're not going to stand the test of time. And I guess if wholeness and health are not options, if we never get to be at peace with ourselves, if freedom and salvation aren't options and the best that we can do is be servants or slaves to something in this world that makes us feel okay about ourselves, I suppose it's better to be a slave to service than a slave to destruction or victimization. But let's not fool ourselves about what's really happening, that we're using these things to feel okay, and that this isn't the same as health or wholeness. It's not the same as bringing the kingdom of God to earth. It's not the paradigm shift that people need in their lives. It's not the demonstration of the truth of who we are. People become free when we demonstrate freedom. We can't preach it from a different cage and expect our message to be effective. We have to walk freely and boldly without apology for our existence. That's more powerful than any inspirational message one prisoner can speak to another. I suspect the reason this paradigm shift is so difficult to come by is because it has to be imparted. It can't be given or received through inspiration or instruction. And we can only impart what we possess. That's why impartation isn't common. I'll share more about that sometime.
This is how we do toll roads. To Led Zeppelin.
The truth is, there's nowhere we need to go, and there's nothing we need to do. There's no one we need to be. We already are everything we ever wanted to be and more. And someday I hope to more thoroughly embody this message. I hope to demonstrate it in a way that changes people's lives. If I'm able to pull that off, that will be my service.
You got ripped off.